Welcome to the Caribbean cooking class with Chef Jason Stewart of Zeke's Island Cafe. I hope you brought your appetites because we have something tasty in store for you tonight. Before we get started, though, I'd like to thank Andy and Debbie Butler for sponsoring this wonderful event, as well as all of our sponsors who made this celebration of the Figge's 15th anniversary possible. Even in these uncertain times, the Figge is bringing art and people together, both on-site and through our virtual museum. Tonight, we ask for your support to continue doing this important work in innovative ways with our community's health and safety in mind. You can make a donation by adding your gift to the chat room or go to mightycause.com/donate/Figge, and we'll share that link in the chat room. Your gift will be matched dollar for dollar up to $5,000 thanks to the generosity of Thomas K. and Jennifer Figge, and we'll ensure that we can provide arts education to teachers and families this fall when they need our help the most. Make sure to bid online on one of our great auction items, including an in-home dinner for 8 people with Chef Stew at FiggeArtMuseum.org. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Jason Stewart, a.k.a. Chef Stew. Jason and his wife Jessica traveled from Bettendorf, Iowa to Oahu, Hawaii in the fall of 2006, where they fell in love with the island and the food. A week later, they returned to a blustery Midwest winter storm and had to scrape a week's worth of ice and snow from the windshield with a flip-flop. They quickly discovered that their hearts had stayed in Hawaii. A classically trained chef, Jason has made a habit of digging into the magical stories of humanity to coax out nuances in the cuisine that aren't necessarily found in a recipe. Over the years, he developed a passion for making these hidden cultural treasures accessible to anyone with a heart for adventure. Zeke's Island Cafe is one such voyage that so many people have enjoyed over the past 6 years, and the Figge Art Museum is the next leg of the journey for Chef Stew and his crew. Please welcome Chef Stew.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. I'm sure everybody went shopping and found all kinds of fun stuff. One of the things that we're going to do today is kind of just talk about what the different ingredients are. I'll just go over them real quick. I know a couple people probably hadn't had any luck with plantains before. I just wanted to show everybody this is ripe and this is ripe enough. That was kind of the way I wanted to look at it. You can use green plantains for cooking as potatoes and things like that, but we're going to cook a dessert, so we want a nice soft plantains. We're using our chicken, rice, and beans. We're going to use some coconut milk, and then fresh ginger, fresh thyme, some limes. I'll get that out of the way. And then probably the most important thing that makes this whole Caribbean thing worth talking about is the peppers. But not everybody's going to enjoy that. Not everybody's going to need that heat. But if you do, if you appreciate the heat of a jalapeno or a habanero, I think you really enjoy the different kind of citrusy effervescence of a Scotch bonnet pepper, which comes from the Caribbean. So that'll be in there. You can leave that out if you're participating online with the food that we prepped. Then we'll kind of show you how everything lays out, and we'll go from there a little bit. Probably another thing that didn't make sense in the way we laid things out on paper is that we said keep the shrimp shells. Normally you could cook the shrimp in the shells and get the flavor of the shrimp shell into the sauce, but we're going to make it easy and just take those shrimp shells out, and then we'll put the shrimp right in there. But one of the fun things that we're going to talk about is the chicken. We're going to get to that really quick. As far as the recipes go, we're actually going to start the dessert first. So if you are cooking along, there's this little island funny thing that we say at the restaurant all the time, that if you order your dessert first, it counts as a salad. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put our plantains on here in a few minutes and just let them cook. They take a while. That way they're ready. You don't have to do that. You can do that later if you like. But right now, the most important thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and marinate this chicken a little bit with the dry seasonings. And the big thing is, you'll notice in your recipes that we had both dry and fresh seasonings. But what is important about that is for a dry rub, you want to use dry seasoning. So I'm adding the garlic here, exactly the amount in the recipe, of course. That's all chefs ever do, exactly the amount. So I'm doing the garlic, the ground ginger, and then what makes this uniquely Caribbean or Jamaican is going to be the allspice. And that's really going to bring out a different tone that most people aren't expecting. And that's what makes this a Caribbean flavor. So you can it separates, it stands alone. The other thing, of course, we want to add is a little bit of salt and pepper. Liberal salt. And I like to use fresh pepper, but also ground pepper. They have different reasons. The ground pepper is going to be a little more aromatic, and the cracked black pepper is going to have just a little bit more crunch to it. Okay, so now I'm just going to work that in. And the reason why we did this with chicken breast was because you don't have to marinate too long to get the flavor in. But the most important thing we did was we went ahead and cut this chicken into cubes. A lot of times you'll see a whole chicken or a half a chicken or a quarter chicken that's Jamaican or jerk or smoked, and that's great. But for this dish, since we're sauteing it, the more surface area we have, the better. And that's really going to work that out. So that's going to do its job. It's going to sit there. It's going to start to soak in all those flavors. And so we'll get to that in about 3 dishes. So right now I'm going to go ahead and turn the fire up a little bit on my plantain pan. You want a medium heat because it's going to take a long time to cook. So you don't want to rush into things. Like I said, we're going to start the plantains first so that we can then finish them up at the end and have them all seasoned and ready to go with all the fun stuff. So the first thing you'll notice is that we use grass-fed butter. Basically, butter is the preferred, Butter is the preferred source of fat for cooking whenever you can. It just has more flavor, a little more versatility, and in this, you're going to find that it adds a little bit more of that caramelized flavor. Butter that's browned adds kind of a deepness and a richness to the dish. So right now I'm going to go ahead and put these in here. I went ahead and cut them up and let them kind of sit outside of the skin for a while, and that also helps them soften up a little bit more. If you can see really well in here, they're a little shiny, and that's from just kind of the breakdown of the cells, and it makes it just a little bit easier to work with. All right, so I'm going to make that, kind of put the flat sides down as the best place to start, because as we go, we'll stop back over and visit these plantains from time to time as we're cooking. But it really is all about going slow, taking your time, and getting a nice deep brown on here. The reason we have to do that is because it's a plantain. I know it's deceptive. It looks like a banana. So, of course, bananas go great in dessert. Banana split. Nothing could be better. But right now, this is going to taste more like a potato. And we need to make sure that all the starches and the sugars get caramelized. Otherwise, it's not going to taste like a dessert. So we'll go ahead and let that go. You can see I got a little bit of brown there. And so I flipped it over to give it just a chance to start on the other side. And then I'm also going to cover that, and that's going to help soften those up too. We'll come back to those in just a little bit. And we're going to move over to the Portmore prawns, which is listed as an appetizer. You can obviously eat this anytime. The thing with the Portmore prawns was the prawns. And I don't know if anybody had a chance to see our video. We actually visited the Great Midwest Seafood Company, and we asked them, what's the deal with prawns? And basically they said it's just a catchphrase for large shrimp. So we went and got some large shrimp, and these are a pink shrimp. They kind of look like they're already cooked, but they're definitely not cooked. The whole point to this dish, if you see in the recipe, is that we want to flavor this butter. There we go. With the shrimp shells. That is absolutely key to this dish. So cooking shrimp, when you cook shrimp in a fat or like in the butter, you're going to actually infuse the butter flavor into the shrimp and the shrimp flavor into the butter. And that's where you get that nice, rich, beautiful sauce. And what's going to make it more Jamaican is we're going to add some lime and tomato, fresh thyme. I just want to take 2 seconds and talk about that. Thyme is another big accent that you're going to see. So you've got the allspice and then the fresh thyme. You put those two together, and you can almost start to recognize that you're near the Caribbean flavors, and it's going to start to come out. And then you add a little lime and some onions, some fresh ginger, and then of course that spicy Scotch bonnet pepper, and you are talking downtown Jamaica. Okay, so all I'm putting in here right now are the shrimp shells. I've peeled all the shrimp that I need, and I'm working through to flavor this. So I'll turn the heat down just a little bit, because all I really want to do is infuse the flavor of the shrimp. And it will absolutely change the way you view shrimp dishes. Okay. So while that's happening, you'll notice a color change in your shrimp. Normally shrimp shells are going to be green or white, sometimes slightly pink. These are actually red shrimp, so they're very pink. But they also have a pretty distinct flavor. So if you look at the shrimp inside, then we're talking about baby lobsters, basically. I mean, that's what they look like. It's a lot more what they taste like. So we're going to put this in here, and I'm actually going to add a little bit more butter now. So butter does a couple different things. It browns, it separates. You've heard of clarified butter maybe, where the fat's been removed. But it also has, I'm going to stop over here real quick and just turn this down on our plantains. Make sure we've got a good color going there. Okay. Coming back. The butter itself adds to the finish of the sauce. So you can put butter in several times throughout a dish in order to get the desired flavor. Everybody likes butter for the most part. I'm one of those people that if I was spreading butter on my toast, once it disappeared and I couldn't see it, I needed to put some more on. So we kind of do that with our shrimp and everything else. And definitely with those plantains. That's going to be the actual sauce is the butter. Okay, so I've got some really good aroma going here. So if you're cooking along at home, hopefully by now you've started to see the shrimp shells change color, and you can smell the shrimp cooking, and it's a whole different world. And just real quick, so I'll pull those shrimp shells out, and we'll just get those out of the way. Try to shake off as much butter as you can. So we've been cooking this dish for like 3 or 4 minutes now, and we haven't even added anything yet. Have you noticed that? We're still on the first actual ingredient. We're back to just having butter in. But now we're going to put in the shrimp. And we're going to cook on a pretty gentle heat, somewhere just below medium, I think. Sounds good to me. Medium's okay. But we really want this to have time to kind of steep and soak up the butter and shrimp flavors. I know it sounds weird to have shrimp flavored butter for shrimp, But really, a lot of the flavor in shrimp is in the shells, and if you peel it off and just cook the shrimp by itself, you're going to miss a lot of that. All right, so that's probably good for an appetizer size for a couple of people. We'll throw a couple more in there. All right. So now the most important thing is to get those flavors in, and shrimp is pretty delicate. So you don't need to overpower shrimp. You're just going to pull a little bit of thyme, and we're going to do this fresh thyme. And when you release the flavors of the thyme in with the butter, then you have an opportunity to really smell what happens with thyme. Thyme often is mixed in with other things, but when you cook it first, you really see other things. We're going to add a little bit of our fresh garlic here, and we'll keep that going. And then, I don't know if anybody else had a chance to do the fresh ginger. There's several ways to get it. I just put this in a blender. Like if you have a little bit of a blender, you just chop it into chunks and put it in a blender. Or you can buy it in a tube and it's literally all ready to go. So hopefully people had different ways of coming up with that. But right now, this is the most important time. I'm going to be stirring those ingredients onto the shrimp. And as you can see, if you're cooking along at home, it really is starting to look like little baby lobsters. Cooking those red shrimp. Sorry about that. I'm thinking about the plantains. So we're just going to turn this down a little bit, and I'm going to flip the plantains. They should be, oh yeah, now we've got some nice brown going on there. And like I said, at home, you can take your time with it. You can do it after we're done with all the class. A little bit extra brown. That's going to be okay though, because our whole goal here is caramelizing. So we'll do that, and then we're also going to add just a little bit more butter at this point. All right, we shouldn't have to mess with those too much to the end of the deal. So while this is finishing up, you'll notice, how do I know when shrimp are done? That's usually a good question. You'll notice that the shrimp start to curl in and firm up, and that's how you know. So basically now we're just going to add a little bit of our salt, a little bit of pepper, and then I'm going to stand back. All right? And then we're almost there. We're going to finish this. I know it's a little bit out of order. We've got just a little bit of brown sugar. And it doesn't take much, just a little bit, go right into that butter. And the reason we do that is because it'll help caramelize the sauce a little bit. Little shot of soy sauce. And I use a tamari sauce. It's gluten-free, works pretty well for just about anything. It's got a great little flavor. And of course, we want to hit it with just a touch of rum, however much you like. That's going to give us exactly that little kick. Okay, so now we've been working on getting everything implemented as far as all the flavors and structures that we're going to set this on. And then we're going to add the heat. How much of this you add is up to you, however much you like to eat. Just put a little in, and a little won't make the whole dish hot, but if you put a little extra in, you'll just keep raising the heat. The earlier you put the pepper in, the hotter that's going to get. So I just put a little bit in, and as you can see, now my shrimp have begun to caramelize on the other side. That's one of the big things. Oh, got a little piece of shell there. Extra flavor, right? Okay, so we got this flipped over, and all we're missing is a little bit of garnish, and that means we're about ready to start the rice. So I like to do garnish a couple different ways. I like to cook it in so you have a little bit of the flavor and then a little bit of the texture. And of course we have to hit this with a little bit of fresh lime juice right at the end. Not too soon or it'll cook down. You want that really fresh lime flavor. Okay. All right. hopefully we're keeping pace with everybody at home. You guys are probably done sitting down and eating already. What I've got going on here now, oh, you can really smell that pepper in there. Okay, so I know you're going to think this is crazy, but it's basically a Caribbean scampi dish. And we're going to take just a little bit of fresh thyme. We'll just put it on the plate, not in the center of the food. That looks really nice. A little bit of fresh green onion right on top. That's not just for looks, it's also another level of the flavor. A few fresh tomatoes on top. And then we're going to hit it with just a shot of fresh juice right over the top. Not too much. Don't want to overpower it. And then we have our Portmore prawns appetizer. All right? Moving right along, we will check on our plantains. They are doing pretty good. I'm going to turn that down just a little bit more. And we're going to move along to the the Jamaican rice and peas and rice. I call it coconut rice with black beans, but that's incorrect. Rice and peas is a traditional dish, and it just means rice and beans. But you can use any kind of beans that you like. And today we're using black beans. So, of course, we're going to use just a little bit of butter. There we go. That might be just a bit high. Just a little bit of butter. All right. And the next thing we're going to do is put a little bit of that fresh thyme right in there. Oh, yeah. So we caramelized our butter a little bit. We put our fresh thyme in there. And what that's doing is releasing the fresh thyme flavor. Oh, you can just smell it. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add that rice. And you should hear it sizzle if you've got your pan at the right setting. Okay. So now we'll just be gentle with this. Take some time. Careful, it is sometimes rice pops out of the pan like popcorn. So it is something you want to kind of, sorry. I know that's cheating. Most people don't do that at home, but it's a hard habit to break. So we'll stir this up. It's not that complex. We definitely want to hit it with a little bit of salt and pepper on the edge of the, around the edges of the pan. Right to the center. Mix that in. All right. So notice our rice is yellow. We like to use a little bit of turmeric in there. You can put that in when you're cooking. Anytime you want to do this, if you're cooking at home and you're making your rice, you can definitely put some of this thyme and some salt and pepper and ginger and all kinds of fun stuff in there while you're cooking the rice. It won't be as pronounced as you might think. So then you'd want to layer it in again and put a little bit more of that seasoning in. So now that I've cooked some with the butter, I'm also going to put some of that fresh thyme in there, just to kind of bring out the different levels and nuances of that fresh herb. Every time you change the way it's cooked, it's going to release a different level of the flavor. So it doesn't take long for a little bit of rice to heat up in a pan. You can see I got a nice steam going on there. So then I'm just going to kind of do a little wok thing. I'm going to push it right to the edge. I'm going to add my beans in. The beans have a little moisture on them, so they'll help steam through the rice. And they'll help finish out heating up the rice. But here we're just doing a little bit to put it all together. It's a fairly simple dish. But the big piece that we need to talk about is the coconut milk. It's not generally what you would see with rice, and you definitely don't usually cook things with liquid and rice at the end, except for maybe like a risotto. So this could be considered like a Jamaican risotto or something like that, if you need something to hang that on. But as you see, my beans are now, my hot rice is heating up my beans, the bean juice is heating up my rice, and I'm getting really a nice combination of flavors here. And I'm going to add a little bit of green onion right now, and we're going to add some later. I don't really want the green onion to cook a lot. because then it kind of just disappears and you lose that whole thing. So now we're going to add a significant amount of the coconut milk because it's actually a sauce. You can smell that when that cooks. Coconut milk in a pina colada is one thing. Coconut milk and rice is a whole nother animal. We really have a lot going on. And something I forgot to say, when we do the coconut milk, you always got to shake the can. Islanders call it waking up the coconut milk. You shake the can before you open it, otherwise you end up with the clear liquid and then the heavy milk solids on the bottom, or the coconut solids on the bottom. So now we've got this going on here. Nice and flippy. Okay, so I'm sure you're going to want a little bit more salt and pepper. And we do have a lot going on with flavors here. I'm going to add just a little bit more of this milk, coconut milk, so that it's a little bit soupy, and then it's going to dry out a little bit as we wait. That rice will actually soak that up, and we'll do that. But probably the most significant flavor in here that you wouldn't recognize on the average table is nutmeg. So we're going to take fresh nutmeg. You can use the ground nutmeg. They're very similar. Fresh nutmeg just has kind of a life of its own. You can use it during Christmas time, during the holidays, during whenever, winter drinks, when you're ice skating. But in Jamaica, we want to use it every day. We want to use it on vegetables, and we want to use it on rice, and in the chicken, and we want to grab another one. And if you'll notice, if you use a microplane, it smells like, I don't know, heaven mixed with the coconut milk. So we get all that stuff going in there. I don't get too heavy with that, but it's definitely a pronounced section of flavors that isn't common. So now that's almost done. We're going to let that sit over here and stay warm. And then we are going to move on to the final dish, which is our chicken. And then we'll put that all together. So we'll turn that back on. Okay. Hopefully everybody's keeping up. Just let this pan heat up a little bit, and then we'll go from there. Is everybody eating all their shrimp already, I hope? That's all gone? Okay. And then the next thing we want to do is just make sure everything's okay. Oh, we've got nice, soft, caramelized plantains here. Life is good. Okay, so we are going to do this. We are going to finish this, but I'm going to also, you can do this later. You can do this anytime you want, but I'm going to put some of that sugar in here now and let it start to just melt into the butter that's already in there. And then at the end, we're going to season it and then add just a little bit more butter for the sauce. I'm sure everybody was wondering how that finishes out. So I know this is like a kaleidoscope of how we're cooking and how we're going through things, but that's kind of how this whole thing works. That's kind of how this food comes together. It's a culmination of so many different cultures, so many different ideas, and so much influence. So now we're going to hit our deal with the chicken. Hopefully everybody has their chicken marinated. If not, just go ahead and marinate it now. Rub that right into the chicken, and you will notice it'll come right out. It'll get nice and dark and brown, just like mine in the bowl, and then you'll have something to go to the pan with. So we're going to put a little butter in there. Now in this one, we do want that pan pretty hot, okay? So once the pan gets nice and hot, we're going to brown the butter just a little bit. I don't know if you can see that very well. And then we're going to let that smoke a little bit. We want to see it start to smoke. Okay, we need that kind of to sear the seasonings on the chicken to make kind of a crispy coating. It'll soften up later, but what we want right now is nice, hot pan. There we go. All right, we'll get that out of the way. And you can watch that sizzle while I change my gloves. I'm sure everybody at home is wearing gloves and a mask and all that stuff. But right now we are going to finish up this chicken, and we're doing pretty good. Okay. There it is. Sorry about that. All right, so we've got our chicken going. We want to look inside here and just kind of see that it's getting crispy. So what I want to say is let this get kind of single layer in the pan. You don't want it piled up because you want that seasoning to really touch the pan and the fat and sizzle and fry and get all that on there. And then the other thing you can do is you can add a little bit more to it if you like. If you say, oh, I like a little more allspice, we'll do that. You know, I like a little bit more ginger. We can do that too. Because now you've got it on the top side, and as this chicken heats up, it's actually going to be able to release a little bit of the fat from inside the chicken, and it's going to reach up kind of on top of itself and grab those spices and pull it in a little bit. So it's all about layering flavors. If you've noticed how we've done these different things, Caribbean cooking is just like all the other cooking. Is taking the time, take good ingredients, and then start to layer those flavors up. We started by browning the butter because we want brown chicken. All right? So now if you can see, I've got a nice crispy edge on my chicken, and I literally want to flip each piece over, just like it was its own piece of chicken off the bone. There we go. Because that crust is really what we're chasing right now. I'll do that. See this piece of chicken right here, it was accidentally sneaking and hiding on top so it didn't get browned. So we want to make sure that gets a good spot right in the middle, wherever your hot spot is on your pan. And hopefully if you're cooking at home, your house smells like heaven, like a vacation. That's what we like to say. We want to make sure that your dinner tastes like vacation. And take your time with this. We're still on pretty high heat, so be careful because that high heat fat is going to be a little bit volatile. You don't want to get it on you in any way. This is looking pretty good to me. Oh boy. You guys are experiencing the same thing. I just want to say too, thank you guys so much for the support. This is going to be such a fun adventure. We'll be here at the Figge working out some new recipes, bringing out some old favorites, and all kinds of fun stuff. We plan to have features, and maybe you'll see some of these dishes on the menu for features over the next few months. All right. So now, as you can see, I've got a totally different chicken. It's nice and crispy. It's almost like we breaded it and fried it, which is kind of what we're looking for. You want a high heat, a little bit of fat, and all that dry seasoning is now part of the crust. It's like we breaded it in seasoning, and that's what mentality we want. That's what we want it to look like. So that's what's coming out of here. You can also do this with large pieces of chicken if you like, and season it up, and you can marinate it up to 3 days. It just depends on how much you want that flavor in there. You can do it with the skin on. When you're doing that with the chicken, the larger pieces, what I would do is either on a grill or a smoker, mark it off really nice, and then finish it in the oven until it comes up to 165 degrees, so that's all, good to go. Or you could finish it in a large saute pan with a lid on it. You could turn the heat down and let it finish. So those are the kinds of things that you can adjust for this recipe, because hopefully I'm probably all over the place and you may not be able to keep up, but I want to hope that people will try this at home, even if they didn't get a chance to tonight. So see, that chicken's now brown on the other side. That's what we're looking for. And this is the central part of the dish. Obviously the shrimp is amazing. We did that as an appetizer. But Jamaican Jerk chicken really is kind of the quintessential Caribbean dish that everybody thinks of. And the one that we're doing here is definitely a little bit more accessible than what you're going to find on the beach in Jamaica or one of the other Caribbean islands. You're basically going to find a half a chicken or a whole chicken that's been smoked, maybe cut in half and set on a plate. This is something that you can try to get anyone to try. And right now, as you can see, it's not spicy at all. We haven't made it hot. And that's kind of the key to what we do at Zeke's and what we're going to do here at the Figge. is we kind of make things accessible. We want people to try things that are new without being afraid of like getting burned to death, or it hurts so much, or it's just too spicy. So right now we've layered in those flavors. I can't explain the smell. It's just so amazing. And I'm going to cheat and just glance at my recipe because I don't want to miss anything for you guys. The most important thing that I wanted to talk about on this was the Scotch bonnet pepper. We talked about that. We put a little bit in the shrimp, but we don't want to overdo it on the chicken. And you can put the Scotch bonnet pepper in when you marinate it, okay? You can put it in there and it'll actually start to add flavor of the pepper without so much of the heat. The heat will raise up when, oh boy, sorry, I got interrupted by the smell. The heat will raise up as you cook it. All right, so now I've got what I would say is a really nice crispy chicken. But generally, jerk chicken isn't crispy. And that would be because of the sauce, which is what we're going to finish up next. So we're going to need a little bit of soy sauce and ketchup. I know, ketchup, right? Ketchup is such a great tool in the kitchen when you're using interesting ingredients because it helps pull things together. So we got this going. We got a little bit of fat in the bottom, not a lot. About half of that fat is what came from the chicken itself. So now we're going to add just a tidge of soy sauce, which has sodium in it. So let's keep that in mind when we're salting later. Okay. And that's going to also layer and help caramelize those items. Pepper. So we don't want to add the pepper before the liquid because what will happen is it will steam you and you'll get that big shot of spicy pepper right in the face, and that will not be any fun for anybody. Okay, so here we go. Doing pretty well. The pepper's in there. I think it got me anyways. And then we're just going to finish up with our little bit of garlic, fresh ginger, kind of the theme. And I don't think this is in the recipe, but we're going to hit it with some of that fresh thyme too. And you can also play around with all these things. And then I'm going to just make sure that garlic and ginger gets down inside there so that it cooks a little bit. All right. And you could stop right there. Everything would be fine right there. But I'm just going to add a little touch of ketchup and bring that all together. And that's going to hold all those flavors right there on the chicken. So then the last thing we need to do is hit it, of course, with the fresh lime juice. All right, now we've got Jamaican Jerk chicken. We're going to hit it with just a little bit of green onions. Woo-hoo. That's ready to go. So then we'll take our rice. So rice and peas with coconut milk. Jamaican Jerk chicken like you've never had before. No bones, that's kind of the big thing there. Woo-hoo. We'll hit it with just a little bit of garnish. A little fresh on top, not too much. And then all we have to do is finish up the plantains, which are now absolutely wonderful. All right. So if you can see, now my sugar has completely melted. I've got this sauce. It's nice and goopy. Goopy is always a good thing for desserts, I think. It's probably one of the only times that's a good word. But goopy and dessert goes really well together. So now I'm going to add just a little bit more butter. So it's not just melted sugar. And then I've got a little cinnamon here. And of course, we're going to do that fresh nutmeg right over the top, which you can also put that in as a garnish. All right. Now, the thing I didn't mention was you could have this over ice cream as well. So I'm just going to let that butter melt on the plate, right in the sauce with the plantains. And that, my friends, is a fairly decent 3-course Caribbean meal. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Chef Stu. That was wonderful, and it smells delicious. I'm hoping there will be leftovers after. But once again, I'd like to thank Andy and Debbie Butler for providing us with this class with Chef Stu, and to thank all of our audience members who joined us tonight. Please remember to bid online at our auction. You could have tonight's experience and Chef Stu's delicious food in your home. He's generously donated a dinner for 8. Go to figgeartmuseum.org to bid. We also have beautiful original artworks by Ellen Wagner, Tim Schiffer, and Didier William, and experiences such as a party for 20 people at UP, located in the Current, Iowa, membership to the Outing Club, and a virtual concert with famed international Steinway artist Julian Gargiulo. You can also support our mission by donating today. Your gift will be matched dollar for dollar up to $5,000, thanks again to the generosity of Tom and Jennifer Figge. All proceeds from tonight and the 15th anniversary will support the Figge's art and education programs, enabling us to bring art and people together at a time when our community needs it most. Go to figgeartmuseum.org and follow us on social media to be part of the fun. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight's event.